All right, it indicates that we are live, Adam. That means we are live. I'm Rob Tatro. Great to have you guys here. I have with me Adam Buss, Head of Wealth and Estate Planning at the Tatro Group. Adam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And today we're all about RRSP Meltdown, financial planning, questions, considerations that you want to consider as you approach retirement, as you're in retirement. We got a whole bunch of data. We're really hoping to get a lot of questions from you guys out there that are watching. We also do have a case study that we want to take you guys through. The idea is that we're going to try to hammer through as many questions and have a real life discussion. Adam and I are going to have a real life discussion as we do when we create plans for clients. So we meet a client, we take them through the planning process, we gather the information, we gather all their data, and then we crunch the numbers. And then Adam and I have a discussion about kind of, where we think this guy or gal or couple or, individual is going and how can we help? What are some solutions that we can provide? And that's what we're going to take you guys through today. It's going to be a little different, obviously, because it's for TV, but it should be good. Exciting times. I see a lot of people trickling in. So thank you guys for coming in. Don't forget, we are live on, I think, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, I believe. And that's it. Or maybe X. I don't know. So anyways, welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get going right away here. I want to ask you guys to feel free to ask some questions. Feel free to email them in if you'd like. Feel free to post them wherever you're posting your questions. Adam, did you catch the Jays game last night?
I followed the score, so it was very exciting, but I can't say I actually watched the game.
Okay.
But I did know the results, so that's impressive.
That is good. That is good. I'm so jacked. I lived in Toronto. I went to law school there for a few years, and I became, unfortunately, at that time, a Jays fan because I was a diehard Expo fan, and my brother and my dad and everyone was like mad at me because I became a Jays fan. But now I'm so into it. I'm so into these Jays. I traveled and I watched them.
It's really just because you ran out of other teams to cheer for? Is that
kind of what it was? Well, they took our Expos away. Took our Expos away. So then I was like, okay, well, I was in Toronto. I started going to games. I started cheering for them, and it was awesome. And for them to be in the World Series, the way they're doing it without Bichette, mostly on the backs of starting pitching and timely hitting, and bringing guys back from the dead. George Springer, wow, hit a 3-run bomb. That guy's like my age, and for him to be give or take, and for him to be hitting a 3-run home. Anyways, we're excited. I'm excited. The Jets are also playing great. 5 wins in a row for our hometown Winnipeg Jets. This city that you see behind you right here is Winnipeg. And I'm in Winnipeg right now, so it's good to see our Jets. Johnny Taves. Who's a Johnny Taves believer? I am. Got a big goal. Adam is too. Good. Got a big goal yesterday. All right, guys. Let's talk RSP Meltdown. Still no questions I see coming in, or if they are, some are coming in by email. So I'm going to share a screen here, and I'm going to take you guys through a bit of some questions. So Adam, maybe generally about process. So when someone comes over, maybe we talk about this briefly. Someone comes over as a client and they talk about a financial plan. For us, what does that mean for us generally? What do we believe that means for us? And what do we want? What are our goals in taking through a couple or a client through the financial planning process?
Great question, Rob. So a financial plan is all about trying to identify what is the client's priorities, what is their unique set of circumstances, what does their retirement look like? I mean, since we're on the retirement discussion today, just because Bob down the street likes to spend $10,000 a month, that doesn't mean that that's right for everybody in retirement. So we want to walk a mile in the client's shoes, as I think you always say is important, right? We really want to understand, what does your new lifestyle look like in retirement? How are you going to spend your free time? And what is that going to cost you? And then the most important thing that everybody wants to know is can I retire? Am I on track, right? So
can I buy the truck?
Can I buy the truck too? That does come up. The truck, the tractor, the sports car, whatever it happens to be, right? We want to know that you're good. Everybody wants that peace of mind. Doesn't matter high net worth, low net worth, every client is important. Every client wants to know that they can just breathe easy and relax in retirement, live the good life.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about, in the way we're going to do this, we're going to talk about a specific couple. The names have been changed, but we're going to talk about Matt and Vanessa. And the idea here is that we're going to take you through a situation. In taking you through this situation, hopefully you that are watching out there are going to think about a question. Hey, what about this? What if my situation is a little different, but I have this or I have that, or pension's a little different, or I expect to live longer or shorter, or I have a corp or whatever. And if you have questions, feel free to ask them, come in. Here's maybe I'll start with a question here from Ed Enns. I'll hide this for a second.
We'll try to cover them as they come up.
Retired and not working. If I withdraw too much out of my RRSP account and at risk of getting the OAS clawback, can I deposit money back into the RRSP by February 28th? Oh, that's interesting.
Oh boy, good question. Yes, if depends on what your age is, if you have RSP contribution room still. So that's always the big thing, right? Because if you're beyond the age of 71, I mean, you can't contribute to your own RSP anymore. However, if you still have a spouse that's younger than 71 and you have RSP contribution room, you could always potentially do a spousal RSP contribution, which helps your tax deduction as well. So it's always a matter of looking at your specific situation and making sure. But typically, we want to try to make sure that we don't have that OAS clawback problem. And we want to look at, instead of an RSP account withdrawal, we want to look at a RIF withdrawal so that it qualifies for pension income splitting after the age of 65. And then perhaps some of that income can just move over to the spouse's tax return as well. So again, everybody's set of circumstances is different. Great question. Happy to look at that further if you want to reach out as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to our situation here.
Great.
Matt and Vanessa. So this is a fictitious name change. They're a couple in their 49, 51, making 60 and 72 grand. They're both retiring at Matt's age 55. There's pensions here. We're going to get to the pensions in a sec. Matt's got 85 as CPP, 85%. So most of the CPP, they've worked most of their lives, eligible for 75% of CPP for Vanessa. They both get the clawback, the OAS, not the clawback, the OAS, old age security. That's the pension that is earned at age 65. Matt has a defined benefit pension. Okay, so that's an $18,000 a year pension from his work. It's fully indexed to inflation, 50% survivorship with a bridge benefit. Their home in Winnipeg is worth 400 grand. Someone in Toronto or Vancouver that's watching this is like, oh my God, they own a shed. These guys, they live in a shed.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's happening? No, you can buy the average home in Winnipeg, I believe, is under $400,000. You could buy, a nice place for 400 grand in Winnipeg, $30,000 mortgage at 4%. That's not a joke. That's true. 60K expenses, 84-year post-retirement expenses. So we want to go through a few scenarios here. Their investments, they got TFSAs, they got about 200 grand of TFSAs, they got about $1 million of RSP, and they got 100K of non-registered in the joint. So first thing we're going to look at here on the next slide is the defined benefit pension. Adam, talk us through what a defined benefit pension is, who has them, and why do they matter?
So, I mean, not everybody is fortunate enough to have a defined benefit pension plan from their employer. So it's an employer-sponsored pension plan that, instead of, like a matching group RSP where, you put in 5%, the employer puts in 5%, and it's really just a large RSP essentially by the time you retire. This is a guaranteed fixed income stream for you at retirement based on how long you were employed for, what your annual income was, what the contribution percentages were. It works out to be a formula. So it's a great way of having a guaranteed income stream. So we have a few examples up there. So, often healthcare employees. So HEP in Manitoba, it's different for each province. TRAF, so teacher's pension. Government of Canada, most provincial pension plans also follow a defined benefit pension plan. They tend to be more expensive for employers. So a lot of people, in the private sector kind of did away with those a few years ago and switched it to the group RSP. So very important just to understand, what does your pension look like? It forms part of your retirement cash flow and money that you have access to, right? So it's not a depleting investment balance over time.
Okay, this is great. And does it increase every year? Does the amount that I get increase every year?
Oh, yeah, good question. So not every pension does, right? So some pensions are status quo for the rest of your lifetime. So obviously you're eroding your purchase power as inflation does go up because your pension is going to stay level. Other ones will do partial indexing, partial adjusting to inflation. Some will do full of inflation annually. So some call it indexing, some call it COLA, cost of living adjustment. So those are different things to consider, and it really can impact how far your pension dollars will go as you get older. And as you know, especially over the last couple of years, things tend to get more expensive. They don't tend to get cheaper over time.
Inflation, cost
Yeah,
of a
inflation.
basket of goods increased price year over year. So, or the reduction in the purchasing power of your dollar. So, a lot of these that you mentioned, HEP, TRAF, Government of Canada, Provincial, you do not have an option to convert that. And I'm going a little off script here, Adam. You do not have an option to convert them. You must take the annual income from the pension. But some of these pensions that are we've seen in our days, someone will have like a pension conversion question, pension analysis, as we like to call it, and they have an option to convert to a what's called a LIRA, a locked-in retirement account. So what does that mean?
So it's called the commuted value of your pension. So you're basically exchanging your guaranteed payment for the rest of your lifetime for a lump sum of cash to invest with somebody like Rob Tatro as an example, right? So we would invest the money, and now you are in charge essentially, along with an expert portfolio manager, to manage those funds, and you create your own income stream, right? So maybe instead of $2,000 a month, you want $2,500 a month. So you have a bit more flexibility as to taking those funds out. The other thing you have is, the estate survivor benefits. So instead of just getting a portion of your pension that you spent the last 30 years working for, now your kids or your spouse gets that entire lump sum instead. Not necessarily the right choice for everybody, and that's why we want to have the discussion. There is no one size fits all approach, and we really want to make sure that the client understands the risk reward benefit when it comes to that decision.
Yeah, I always think, like, put it into context. It's like you take ownership of your own pension. You take
Correct.
ownership. You own the assets. It's in your name now. You're deciding how much you're drawing down on it. You're deciding what kind of investment strategy you want in there. You're deciding what happens to the money after you pass, if it goes, spousal rollover or to your estate. And it just gives you a lot more control. Now, in the past, you and I have done these way back in the day, and there used to be times when there was no argument to take the pension, to take the LIRA. You're always better off leaving it in and getting the income stream. But interest rates have moved so much that, it's kind of like now the ones we see most of the time, the individual is better off to take it as a LIRA. But this is something that you should do a pension analysis on. If you're unsure, this is something that someone should do for you, whether it's us or someone else. This is the kind of stuff we do, but doing a pension analysis on a LIRA conversion option is an important piece of your retirement picture. Don't just assume that it's automatically convert or automatically not convert, because every pension is different.
Yeah, it's good to make an informed decision as to what is the right situation for you.
Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide here. We're going to talk a bit about the pension options for this client, or I shouldn't say client, this couple, because it's fictitious. So,
But
so
I
they got,
like Matt and Vanessa. They're great
yes,
people.
great people. You want to talk about their pension? So basically, they got 18 grand. They each 18 grand. So these are the three options, right?
Yeah, so it's really just comparing, what is the impact of, the pension value with a bridge, indexed, non-indexed, or wait a few extra years. You don't retire at 55, you retire at 60, you get a higher pension amount because you're not getting a penalty for an early retirement. So this is really just comparing, what are the values throughout the client's lifetime, and how does that keep pace with essentially the cost of living.
Right.
So that's really what we're trying to do. So we're just trying to look at that.
Okay, good. And because there are a lot of options. So in this base case scenario here, Matt and Vanessa, this is the base case scenario. They have 113% of their retirement allowance. They're leaving 1.23 million in legacy. This is the year by year analysis of their net worth. It's called a stack net worth. So they have, lifestyle assets, which is their home. they have registered assets, which is the blue, then they have a TFSA and a non-registered. So they build and then they draw down at the end, and they finish with $1.23 million at the end. That's after tax, right? This is the base case, Adam?
Correct. This is base case scenario. So Matt and Vanessa walk in, we start the plan for them, and at initial look, we say, you know, you guys are good. Your retirement goals are on track. You're at 113% of reaching your goal. So obviously, as we can suspect, 100% is a good thing, right? That means that everything's on track. So no concerns there. However, you know, is there still room for improvement, right? Some people might just say, yeah, we're good. We're happy. Everything's on track. Why mess with it, right? But there might be a better way, right?
All right. So what does that potentially look like? I'll jump ahead here.
Okay.
Now we're going to talk about CPP. All right. CPP, briefly, before we get into it, CPP is your earned pension. Every time you earn $1, the government puts a portion of that towards the CPP, which is the aggregate pension that we have, and they track your lifetime's contributions, and there's a formula. The more you contribute to it, the more at the end you get to take out. There is a maximum. Currently, the maximum at age 65 is $1,433. That is a full CPP. So if you've worked, was it
39 years of
39
maximum contributions.
39 years of maximum contribution. And to get a maximum contribution nowadays, you need to earn at least, what is it, 60 grand or something like that?
I think it's closer to like 70 right now.
70 grand.
It goes up every year. Yeah.
It's indexed. So let's call it 70 grand. So if you're earning about 70 grand, you're max contributing your portion to the CPP, and you're earning max dollars. If you're earning less than that, it's linear. So if you're earning like 50, you get most of the contribution for that year. And if it's 60, you're getting even more in 70. And if you're earning above 70, you don't get to backtrack it or fill it in. You max contribute for that year. So that's the CPP. You work, you've earned it. And it can't be taken away. It's not going to be taken away like OAS could potentially be clawed back. This is a busy chart and it shows a lot of stuff, but I just want to focus on the top part for now. It shows if you take it early, if you take CPP early, you're foregoing future income. In other words, for every month that you take it early, it is 0.6%. Is my math right?
Less, correct. Yeah, 0.6% less. So if you took it at 60, 36% less that you are getting for the rest of your lifetime.
Yeah. And if you defer it to age 70, you're basically adding 36%.
42%.
42%. Thank you, Adam.
Even better.
Better. Oh, because it's 0.7.
0.7 per month on the back end. So they're trying to incentivize you to leave it longer.
Okay. I got
it's probably like the most popular question I get from people is when should I start my CPP?
Yeah, and I get that question all the time. I'm at a cocktail party, I'm at a Jets game, I'm at this is the question that people ask. Should I take my CPP early? And this is a busy chart. I'm going to leave it off to the side, but I just big picture, Adam. When are some situations where you would automatically take CPP early at 60?
My favorite answer is always it depends, Rob, right? So it's, what is your health like? What is your financial circumstances like? Do you have a shortened life expectancy, right? Because then you might not have the window to wait longer, or if you have health concerns. Might be you need the cash flow just to live, right? Well, then obviously the decision is, put food on the table or try to kick it down the road. It's probably going to try to put food on the table, right? Those would be two big decisions, and a lot of people also come up with the mindset that I put money into this plan this my entire life. I want to get money out of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's the right decision, but everybody has their different way of justifying as to when they're going to take it.
Yeah. So short life expectancy, and you need the cash flow.
You need the cash.
Are two kind of
hands down. Those are easy decisions.
On the other side, I would say there are some no-brainers for when you should not take it. Specifically, if you're still earning and you're earning significant income, I would say that's and you don't need the capital. Like that would be.
Yeah. If you don't need the money, I mean, why pay tax on more income unnecessarily? And some people,
because it's a double whammy, right?
When they're working.
Yeah, it's a double whammy. One, you're getting way less because you're taking it early. So instead of getting $1,433 at age 65, you're only getting $900. And imagine you're like in a top tax bracket. you're only getting 50% of that $900 CPP. CPP gets added to your income. So if you're already making, let's say you're a high income earner, well, now you're only getting $460 of your CPP, right? Instead of maybe waiting till you retire, income comes down. Now you're getting $1,400, and maybe it's only taxed at 25 or 30%. So now you're getting like $1,000. So you're like 2.5 times, you're more than doubling the amount that you can get. So if you're earning income and you don't need it, one situation where you should definitely look at deferring. Add anything there, Adam, before I jump to the next slide?
No, I mean, this is really just kind of showing, what is the lost dollar value if you live essentially like an average life expectancy. So obviously, dollars and cents is not the end all and be all of the CPP decision. There's more to it, but you are leaving money on the table if you take it too soon is essentially what we're looking at. But again, there's no right answer for everybody, which I'm sure we'll have as we go through Matt and Vanessa's scenarios we go along.
The generally using an NPV, a net present value calculation, the break even from back in the day when I did my financial planning courses, was it like 13 years or something? 13, 14 years?
14-ish years
14.
roughly
Okay.
is in theory the break even point that a lot of people will reference.
Okay, and that's obviously there's a lot of assumptions in that break even, but if you think you're going to live more than 14 years, you're better off, and the cash flow is the same, and there's no tax change calculations, which is rare that there wouldn't be a tax difference. But let's make those assumptions. 14 years is the number. There's a couple questions here, Adam. I'm wondering if I should pop them on the screen. Do you see the comments on the right, Adam? If not,
I'll let you pop them up here.
Okay, I'll pop them up. Feel free to check the private chat too. There's some questions in there.
I'm checking there, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show this question here. I'm just going to take a quick pause from this. The question is, how do you melt down a very large RSP? Well, we're going to get to this in this scenario, but maybe we can address it right now. I have no TFSA room. Wouldn't it be better to just leave my RSP, allowing it to grow and accept the 50% hit? Well, I guess it depends how much. There's a lot of it depends here, but how much earnings?
You're stealing my answer, Rob.
Sorry, I'll let you answer.
Well, everybody's got a different definition of a very large RSP. So some people will look at the RSP that's $500,000, and I mean, that's fantastic. You've worked hard to put a lot of money aside. However, some people have a $5 million RSP that is a large tax problem, and regardless of when they take it out, they're going to pay that 50% tax. So we do have some of these scenarios that we're going to go through coming up for Matt and Vanessa. So I think it's very timely that we'll kind of talk about that. But again, there is no right answer. It's really just picking a point in time that we can control the tax rate. And if we can avoid 50% tax, it depends if there's a surviving spouse. It depends on a few different things. But the key is having a plan, right? Having a plan to look at what is the drawdown that makes the most sense.
There's another question here that I'll show real quick from someone who says he's in his mid 80s, has more in investments than he'll need. They'll continue to grow, or they are in their 80s. Sorry, I misread. How can I manage this so that my children benefit most and avoid huge estate taxes? I think I would have made a plan 10 years ago if I were you, but
yeah, hopefully there's a plan in place, and if not, and you're a client and you want to review it, absolutely, let's make a plan. Depends if the money is in non-registered account, TFSA, corporate dollars, RSP, or in your case, a RIF at this age. We got to figure out what that might look like and what the estate tax might be. It's a little late probably to put any life insurance in place to mitigate the tax problem. But again, these are things that we want to look at. We want to try to take a proactive approach when it comes to it. And again, in Canada, there is no estate tax per se, right? There is income tax based on money that hasn't been taxed yet.
I think we would want to look at like the drawdown strategies. We'd want to look at maybe trusts. If it's a large amount, we might want to consider inter vivos trust or testamentary trusts. And I guess, if it's corporate or non-reg, then there's some other opportunities there.
Yeah.
So let's get back to thank you for those questions, guys. Let's get back to, there's a question.
Keep them coming.
Should I hit the one on DCP, Adam?
Sure. Might as well.
Okay. From Celia. I just retired with a DCP, I guess a defined contribution plan.
Yeah, well, congrats on your retirement. That's great. That's very exciting. Always a good time just to review everything. But a DCP is basically a group RSP. So like a matching plan through someone's employer. So it would generally become either probably a LIRA, so a locked-in retirement account. Depends on which province you're in and how that DCP was formatted. There's different pension legislations across each province. But then LIRA money will go to a LIF or a RIF, and then you'll start the income stream from it. So that's kind of the options that you'd be looking at, and again, can manage the investments.
Yeah, sometimes the entire amount goes to a LIRA. Sometimes a portion will go to an RSP. Sometimes a portion even comes out non-reg a portion. Sometimes, or
again, happy to look at those options.
More of pension analysis stuff that we do on a regular basis. And by the way, if you want to do any of that, go to speaktorob.com to book your no obligation consultation. All right, let's get back to this CPP. So the calculation here, 14 years, rough expectancy, lots of back end on that calculation, but let's get to the next one. So deferring CPP. You and I have talked about this already. Matt is eligible for 85%. Vanessa is eligible for 75%. Deferring increases, like almost doubles their benefit. Or no, more than doubles the benefit.
Right. So I mean, here you go to Matt. I mean, $779 versus waiting all the way to 70 is $1,700 a month. So, I mean, it's obvious, right, that you should defer till 70. That's got to be the right answer in this case, right?
I would imagine.
Right, but you know, it might not be right, or depends on what other factors we play in, and we might have this scenario coming up here in a page or so, Rob.
Oh, wow. What's the scenario?
Wow, it's almost like I planned ahead of time. Crazy.
The page turner, riveting page turner.
Riveting.
That is our presentation.
Yeah, exactly. So again, so Matt and Vanessa say, well, you know, let's defer CPP and old age security all the way till age 70. That's got to be better. I'm going to get more money in my lifetime. It's going to improve my results. So if we look at it, you know, Matt and Vanessa dropped as to what their retirement goal is. So now they're only at 110%. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think they're 113%
113
before.
It was, yeah.
Okay. And then we'll see on the right-hand side, you know, the strategies, we see the delaying CPP and OAS actually drops their estate values as well. So they're technically just looking at this individually, leaving money on the table by deferring.
And I know you're going to get to it, but largely there's a couple of reasons. Well, you know, I'll let you get to it. I won't steal your thunder here.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Tax planning and optimization. So why is that the case? Maybe let's get into the next slide here, which is.
Well, there's obviously a bunch of different factors that play in, right? So we don't want to look at one thing like CPP and OAS timing as a purely individual decision. There's lots of factors when it comes to tax optimization, drawdowns that we're looking at for, you know, Matt and Vanessa's unique circumstances as to when might be the most optimal time to, again, give them more money in their pocket that they can spend throughout retirement time. So obviously they have investment accounts, and we've chatted about this with some of the questions. A RIF account. So in the financial world, as you know, Rob, we love acronyms. So RSP, RIF. An RSP becomes a RIF. A RIF is the drawdown product of an RSP. So RSP, put money in, RIF, you take money out. Now everybody always asks, when do I have to start taking out my money? So technically, you have to start withdrawals or convert all of your RSPs by the time you turn 71. Some people think they have to have all of their RSP money withdrawn by the time they turn 71. Common misconception. No, you have to start converting it and start taking out at least a minimum percentage every year. And there's a chart on the right-hand side of the screen here that says what the minimum percentage is. So let's pick a year. Let's pick age 70 as an example. $100,000 in their RIF account, 5% is the minimum that they have to take out and pay tax on. So $5,000 for the year, not per month, just for the year. So not too big of a burden for most people. Again, that's just based on $100,000. A lot of people are taking out more than the minimum because they need that money to live off of and supplement their cash flows. And of course, you can convert the money anytime prior to the age of 71, which I think is often proactive and a way of trying to melt down the account balances and really try to control your taxable income levels.
Okay, a couple things here. First off, when you're drawing down, all of it is taxable income, obviously.
You bet.
There will be a withholding tax applied on some of it. I think you touched on that. And that could be kind of increased or decreased. But remember that the RRIF is just an account type. So a lot of times I'll hear, I have a RRIF. So it's like a GIC, but a RRIF is an account type. You can own investments, stocks, bonds, alternatives, fixed income. You can own anything you want in your RRIF. If you're with a firm like ours, you should own a diversified portfolio.
So Rob, if a client has an RSP with you and you want to convert the money to a RRIF, does that mean you have to sell all their investments?
No, it's just paperwork that our team handles, and then they just convert the account type. The investments actually stay the same.
So basically the name on the account changes from RSP to RRIF. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, it's just a new account number.
Okay.
Easy peasy. And also the whole idea of there's no capital gains, there's no conversion, there's no withdrawal. Remember what the government's trying to do here. They're trying to get you, this is a pension. RSP was meant as, our pensions, the ones that don't have defined benefit pensions. It's our pension. So we contribute to an RSP. They give us a tax credit, but they want to make sure that you're drawing down on that to fund your retirement. And that's why you see the 95 plus, like the number there is 20%. They don't want you to die with a huge RSP. They want you to spend that money. They want to collect their taxes, and arguably, they want to maybe they want to minimize, maybe they don't, but they want you to try to draw down on this RSP.
So basically you've had all this time where you haven't paid taxes on that money.
Yeah.
They would kind of like to start getting some of that tax money at some point in time.
And that's why you're seeing that the percentage slowly increase year over year.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide, Adam. Are we good on this slide?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So let's talk about, I kind of led you into the withholding tax question. Talk me through that one.
So it's basically the mandatory tax. So you take money out of your RSP or your RRIF account. We have to take, as the financial institution or the investment firm, the government says you have to take tax off and remit it to us directly. So just like if you're getting a paycheck, your employer is taking tax off, that's a withholding tax, kind of the same idea for retirement income. Now, not all retirement income is the same. CPP, old age security, typically those don't have a mandatory withholding tax. So you might think, great, I'm getting this $2,000 a month from the government. Fantastic. Well, they didn't take any tax off necessarily. So you might just get a bill when you have to go and file your tax return. RRIF income, RSP income, all of that has mandatory withholding tax. So it ranges from 10 to 30%, depending on the withdrawal amount that we as the institution would have to take off at source. And again, we send that off to the government, which lessens the amount that you'd have to pay in the end.
Okay, good stuff. Let's jump ahead to strategies that we recommend using to pay less taxes. There's a lot here.
There is a lot here. And again, not every scenario here applies to every particular client. Income splitting, I would call it a no-brainer decision. So if you have a spouse that you can try to split some pension income with, I think that's a great way to take advantage of that, which if you have a defined benefit pension, like we chatted about, you're doing RRIF withdrawals beyond the age of 65. So as an example for Matt and Vanessa, so let's assume Matt's 65 years old. He takes $50,000 out of his RRIF account. That means that his accountant, his tax professional, could move $25,000 up to 50% of that RRIF withdrawal to Vanessa's tax return. Therefore lowering the tax liability as a couple and maybe dropping them both into a lower tax bracket, which is great. CPP credit splitting, again, that's the decision at source. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. RSP drawdown strategy, that's certainly something that we're big believers in, which is having a plan to draw down this large tax liability, which I think somebody asked a question about earlier. So again, having a plan to draw down that account. Where possible, let's use TFSA's non-registered accounts as buffers to kind of fill in some gaps if need be. Whole life policy, which is tax exempt in Canada, so another great place to shelter some funds. And of course, there's a few other ones which may make a difference to people as well.
Okay, a couple questions I'm going to pop in here, Adam. These are timely. Can I transfer my RDSP in kind to a RRIF, so a registered disability savings plan, to a registered retirement income fund?
Celia's got lots of good questions today.
Yeah.
So RDSP typically just transitions at age 60 to a drawdown product. So not necessarily a RRIF per se, but there is a schedule as to how income can flow out of there.
Okay. And then I have a LIRA question. Would a LIRA have a withholding tax? I'll let you handle
So a LIRA converts to a LIF, a life income fund, which is, think of it like a RIF, but with restrictions. So there's a minimum maximum that can come out. Same concept, has the 10, 20, 30% withholding tax on the money coming out of the account on the back end. There are some exceptions for minimum payments and whatnot, but I won't add more confusion to the mix today on that one.
Yeah. So an RSP goes to a RIF. A LIRA, if you ever get a LIRA, goes to a LIF.
Correct.
All right. So let's get on with the next slides here. I want to chat about income splitting here.
So I think I kind of got on the topic already a little bit, but again, certain income types before the age of 65 qualify, and after age 65, more types qualify. So before the age of 65, only defined benefit pension plans for sake of argument. After the age of 65, money coming out of the RIF, LIF, LRIF, all those accounts do qualify for income splitting.
Okay.
Did you know, Rob, that if Matt took $50,000 at 65 out of his RRSP, he has to pay tax on that full amount. But if he converted the RRSP to a RIF first, took that 50 out, now that qualifies for income splitting.
Because it's pension income.
Because it's pension income. So these are the little tricks that we do for clients to make sure that their income is optimized.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be facetious when I'm like, these are things that, like, I think a lot of people don't know. So like, this is important stuff. Like, you think you could just draw down on your RSP, pay the tax, pay the dereg fee. Why can I split that? But you can't. It's not technically classified as pension income.
I think we're good on this one.
Okay, I'll show this question. Jordan's asked it twice. It's an investment question. You know what, Jordan? I'll get your question later if that's all right. I'll keep going. I'll get your question later. I promise you, I will get to it. We'll get to the RSP drawdown strategy here. So we're wondering, what order should they draw down their income from for Matt and Vanessa?
So again, we're often going to look at it and plug it in and say, well, perhaps we want to control what tax bracket they're sitting in. As Matt and Vanessa have, there's a couple different pots of money they can pull from. So way too often clients come to us or prospects and say, I'm just going to draw from my TFSA first. I'll pull from my RSP later on. But you're pulling from an account that is growing tax-free, that is going to continue growing tax-free first. So perhaps that's not necessarily the right decision. Obviously, everybody's got a different set of circumstances, but we want to look at what makes the most sense. So we can also avoid having that problem when you're 80, 90 years old of having way too much money still in your RSP and paying a hefty tax bill.
Okay. Let's chat a bit about what this does to their net worth and to their retirement. So now we're looking at just managing the tax bracket and shifting the surplus, right?
You bet. So this is, again, a common thing that we're going to look at. So you'll notice that I also took the CPP and OAS deferral till 70 just out of the equation, just for comparison's sakes. So the only thing we changed was managing their tax brackets and trying to shift some of that extra money to the TFSA along the way. So now we went from 113% of their goal to 119%. So we're just creating a larger pot of money that they can spend, which is good. So that's.
But not only that, Adam, like, I look at this and I see that wonderful mustard yellow TFSA, and that is the money. That's where we want to be.
Literally, that's the money.
That's the money, because now we have all this pot that is growing, compounding, tax-free. And if one of them happens to pass, unfortunately, the TFSA rolls over tax-free to the other spouse, and you got this huge pot of money that's spitting out tax-free income for life. So yes, we have less registered assets. You will notice that the registered portion is slowing down, is disappearing, but that's the whole plan in this case.
That's good.
We're drawing down on the RSP. We got this huge monster TFSA, and they're going to be set up in the future, which is why the legacy is so big.
Yeah. So you see on the right side, I mean, just these two strategies, without changing their spending, increase their legacy by $420,000 or so.
All right. Phenomenal. I love it. And then we got this is like this is a little complicated chart.
It's a little busy, to say the least. Yeah.
We just want to highlight the tax rate on various income brackets. So this is just a tax bracket chart. Anything else you want to add on that, Adam?
Yeah. So in this case, for Matt and Vanessa, we're trying to keep them within that $47,000 to $57,000 bracket. So It accomplishes all their spending goals and helps melt down some of that RSP along the way as well. So it's really just controlling their taxable income level.
It's a nice bracket because it's at roughly 27% in Manitoba. And if you go above that, it's a big jump to 33%. Correct, yeah. That's a pretty steep jump from 57 to 58 or whatever. So I like that you're
it's definitely better than 50% if they die, right?
Definitely. Here are some other provinces what the tax rate looks like. You know, if you're in another province, that's okay. We're licensed in all the provinces. We're happy to help you out regardless where you are. Now we're going to go back to this drawdown strategy.
So again, we're looking at Matt and Vanessa's income, and we're saying, how can we use that tax bracket of, in this case, $47,000 to $57,000 to their advantage? So, you know, on top of his pension income, you know, there's room in that tax bracket to take some money out of the RSP or RIF, depending, and say, well, if you don't need to spend it, well, let's shift it to that TFSA. You know, that's where the money is going to be down the road, as Rob said, right? We want to grow that money tax effectively. And if we can be proactive, melt down that RSP balance by controlling your tax bracket, not very often you can say, I'm controlling what amount of money I'm going to send to the government every year. Not a bad place to be. You're in the driver's seat. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and it won't necessarily always work out this way, but for this client, for this couple, one, they had the lower income. Two, they had the TFSA contribution room. Three, they had a window there where they could defer. Right, they deferred in this case, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, they ended up taking it early.
Yeah, they're taking it early currently. Yeah. But don't spoil the rest of it for me.
I'm jumping ahead. Sorry, and I shouldn't do that to you. Next slide. Here we go.
All right, so you've taken this extra money out of the RSP. Where are you going to put it? TFSA, non-registered account, tax exempt whole life, just different buckets that you can now start filling up.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all.
Okay, I'm going to jump ahead here. Okay. Now the new outlook. It's starting to look
bigger and bigger.
We're
making progress. So again, we haven't changed when they can retire. We haven't changed how much they're going to spend. This is just saying, let's try to optimize their retirement picture so they can spend the most possible and leave the largest estate as well. Okay. So now you'll see that deferring CPP and OAS, when factored with the other goals, actually increases how much they can spend throughout their lifetime. So looking at one strategy just on its own doesn't necessarily make sense, but when you piece it all together for Matt and Vanessa's particular circumstances, we've now increased their spending dramatically and really increased the size of their estate.
So they can spend 25 cents extra now for every dollar during retirement,
roughly, yeah.
And they're still going to have 2.64 million as a legacy piece for their estate.
So if they don't spend that extra, it's just sitting there and growing, and you've now shifted all that wealth into the TFSA. So as the question was earlier about how do I avoid taxes when I die, I mean, TFSA money, tax-free when it goes to the next generation. Great way to mitigate the taxes.
And you'll see in this sample here, like in 2044, 2045, like pretty much all the assets are either the home or the TFSA. So like those are phenomenal because the home is going to be tax deferred, no tax at all on the capital gains, and the TFSA, as you just said, goes to the kids tax free.
I mean, who would have thought when the TFSA came out, you know, $5,000 a year contribution originally, whoop-de-doo, that's not going to move the needle much. But when you compound it over time, contributions, phenomenal, huge advantage for clients.
Yeah, we have clients that have $500,000 TFSAs and already, and you know, some of those. So yes, you can definitely compound and be aggressive. I just want to remind clients that when we first did the planning on this, we had looked at deferring CPP, and it didn't look like it was that beneficial, right?
But no, it made it worse.
Once you add the tax brackets, shifting the surplus, looking at income splitting, and now you defer, it becomes a whopper of a home run.
Correct.
Let's talk about these common tax traps. I mean, you've mentioned them already. OAS, not having a withdrawal plan, no planning for your retirement, your tax rate fluctuating. The worst is like you have a year where your income is like 250 grand. Then you have a year where your income is 25 grand. You're like, no, because you paid all that marginal tax rate at the higher level. If you could even those out, it looks way better, right?
Yeah, and that's what we do by planning and making sure that the advisory team, the planner, everybody's on the same page, working with the same information so that we can save you some money along the way and keep it in your pocket.
A couple more slides here.
Certainly prevent OAS clawback.
The smile. You want to talk about the smile
Retirement
briefly?
smile. So I like the term, right? So everybody thinks, my spending is gonna decrease naturally as I get older, as I do less fun things with my money. I'm traveling less, I'm less active. But for a lot of people, it actually is, it does go down. But then as healthcare costs tend to rise, or maybe you have, long-term care needs, your expenses actually go back up. So they call it the retirement smile because your expenses start high, go lower as you start to travel less, let's say, but then they do start to rise again with health changes maybe later on in life. So I wish it was called maybe the frown, because it sucks that you have healthcare changes. But again, for visual smile, fantastic.
Nice. And I think it's important to know that it will not be consistent. Your spending in retirement will not be consistent. Questions to ask yourself, Adam.
Well, since I talk to myself and ask myself questions all the time, it's, what are my retirement goals? Again, I don't care what my neighbor's doing. Every client is not the same when it comes to retirement goals. How are you going to spend your free time in retirement? What does that bucket list for travel look like? What do you need? Have you come up with a budget as to what's going to look like? Just because you're spending X today, you stop going to work tomorrow, does that mean your spending needs are all of a sudden going to change? Some people it goes down, other people it actually goes up in retirement. So what is right for you is the important thing.
Question from Roy here. He's asking what the assumption on the income tax bracket escalation is. I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think, well, do you understand this one? Maybe a little
Not
more.
sure I fully understand it. We're looking at combination of federal and provincial tax brackets, and it's a tiered system in Canada. So each income is taxed at certain income levels. Yeah, that one there. So you'll see the first call it 16,000 of income is basically zero. The next, call it 30,000 of income, is taxed at 25%. The next is at 27%. So each income is taxed at those respective levels. It's not like if you make $58,000, all of that money is taxed at 33%. So we do got to keep that in mind. So perhaps that's the question, but again, these are things that we want to look at.
And I just want to top up one thing. My job here on the investment side, when I look at this tax rate and I look at these accounts, we have to factor in the different rates on, income, dividend, cap gains, return of capital, and how do we put those investments in your different accounts. An RSP is not taxed the same way as a non-registered, is not taxed the same way as a corporate account. So our job on the investment side is to optimize your tax in investments to minimize your income. Escalation. So Roy is asking escalation over each year as you age. Well, the tax brackets don't change as you age.
The tax brackets will typically just get adjusted to inflation annually, unless there's new tax brackets. So Manitoba, as an example, it used to have kind of an in-between tax bracket in that 57 to 100 range. So they changed that about a year ago, I believe. So again, we can only make assumptions as we're trying to project the next 40 years of somebody's life, but it is assuming that those brackets do escalate over time based on just standard inflation. All right.
Okay, last couple of slides here. This is the punchline.
We're getting there. So punchline is always looking at we do want to be proactive in trying to get money out of the RSPs, because what happens if one person passes away prematurely? Now the survivor has all of this income that they have to take, which means that they're going to get pushed to a higher tax bracket. So if I look at this and say, well, what happens if Matt dies at 75? Well, now Vanessa has to actually lower her spending, otherwise she is going to run out of money. So that's, again, the status quo version, where we're just saying we didn't do any planning ahead. We didn't control the drawdowns. We didn't defer CPP and OAS. This is what it would look like. Vanessa would have to modify her standard of living. Not ideal.
Yeah, and I think that you lose the ability, one person, you can't manage the household as well, obviously, for income splitting, for all these things.
And expenses don't cut in half when one person
Exactly.
passes away, right?
Yeah. Now the next slide here shows.
All right, so we did all the planning, we did all the strategizing to make sure everything's still on track. What does it look like? Again, I just converted the strategy. So now Vanessa does not have to change her standard of living. We took a proactive approach, focusing on drawing down the RSP a bit earlier, controlling the taxable income, and shifting money to the TFSA. Now, when Matt dies, again, we keep picking on Matt. He's the one dying early. All the money's inside the TFSA. So now Vanessa has a tax-free source to pull from without changing her taxable income level.
It's the holy grail, right? If you get all your assets in a TFSA, it's like you never have to worry about paying tax ever again on investments.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So this is a phenomenal bonus. And then this last slide here just shows in real numbers the difference just with planning. We're not changing the investment strategy. We didn't take more risk. We're not, selling insurance. This is just planning around the stuff we covered in this session.
Proactive versus doing nothing and saying, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, it ends up being an extra 12% income per year. And the legacy is more than doubled for this family, this household. And who gets that? Well, it's the kids, it's the grandkids, it's favorite charities. It's not the government. So
they have the option, which is fantastic.
All right, there's our little disclaimer. I will pull that out. I will ask again if there are questions, and I will address a question here that I got from Jordan. It's kind of an investment question, but can you go over the loan shuffle drawdown strategy and your thoughts on using covered call ETFs to invest in the loan? This wasn't really supposed to be about investment strategy, Jordan, but I'll tell you briefly what I think. So the loan shuffle is basically using your available leverage in your house and then keeping the leverage in your. So let's say your house is worth $1 million. They'll give you a home equity line for, let's say, 600 grand. As you pay down that mortgage, you get more available home equity line, and you use those funds and you put them in your investment account, either in a TFSA, an RSP, whatever. And you keep paying your mortgage. You keep shifting assets over to your investments. And on your balance sheet, you have the asset, which is your house. You have the asset, which is in your investments. And on the liability side, you will always have a home equity line for the maximum amount. It's not like most people who pay their mortgage down. So the benefits of this is that if you could generate more returns in your investment portfolio than you're paying on your home equity line or your mortgage, you will be ahead, period. End of discussion. So you're going to have a much stronger balance sheet, but you're adding leverage. So not everyone is comfortable with leverage. Leverage is debt, right? Some people like to pay down their debt. If you're one of those individuals who doesn't care about owning debt and who just wants to see your net worth grow over time, and you're able and comfortable in a kind of a growth portfolio of some sort, then yes, this will work for you. This is what I do in my investment portfolio. And I know a lot of people who do this. It absolutely works as long as the market generates more than what you're paying. And you suggest covered call ETFs. I'm not a huge fan of covered calls ETFs for a whole bunch of reasons, but you could just own a balanced portfolio and it would do the same thing, right? As long as your returns are higher than your cost of borrowing, you will be better off, right? Because you're generating more in terms of returns than you're paying down in terms of debt. Sorry, that sounded way more complicated than it probably could have been, but it's a are you comfortable with risk question. So definitely, Jordan, if you are comfortable with risk, do it. If you're not comfortable with risk, don't do it. Regardless, don't take my advice on this. Talk to your advisor. If you'd like to talk about this or anything else that's going on in your portfolio, speak to rob.com, book your no obligation consultation. That's what we do. We're here. Adam is head of wealth and estate planning on our team. He's the absolute best I've ever seen in this industry. I'm so thankful to have you on my team, Adam. I'm thrilled to work with you every single day. You guys have seen Adam Haig. Unfortunately, the two Adams, but we like them both. Adam Haig was on here last time, and him and I chatted about investments. So Adam Haig is our chief investment officer, and I work with him every day. He's also the best I've ever seen in the business. So we have a team of experts here to work with you on either the planning side, on the investment side, whatever is going on in your life. We'd love to be a part of it. And I think that's it. We're going to be just under time here. Adam, anything else you want to add on this?
No, I mean, I would say, again, a pleasure being here. Work with a fantastic team, great portfolio manager, advisor, not only Rob Tatro, but all the other advisors on the team, phenomenal to work with. And, at the end of the day, have a plan to draw down the RSPs and control your taxes. If you don't plan ahead, then you don't get to choose the way things are going to go.
You should not be working with an advisor that isn't talking about this kind of stuff, in my opinion. If you've got wealth of any kind, this is table stakes, in my opinion. It's a key portion of your net worth picture, of your wealth picture. So I think it's absolute table stakes. So yes, shout out to my sister Tanya, who's an advisor. Shout out to Devin, Remy. Shout out to all the advisors on the Tetro team. There's a question here. No, I think it's, no, I'll skip that one. And we will wrap this up here. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Adam and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and tell anyone who's interested about us. Thank you, guys. We're out.